Back in my day, when I was but a callous youth, the definition of racism was really, really damn simple. It was discrimination based on race. Whether that discrimination was positive or negative didn't really matter, because discrimination was discrimination. If you got a job due to the color of your skin, then that was racism. If you didn't get a job due to the color of your skin, that too was racism, and it was all illegal. Nice and simple. No complicated nonsense, no theory crafting, no loop-de-loops of trying to run yourselves into Olympic circles to figure out how to be racist but feel good about it. It was simple as discrimination equals discrimination. And finally, America has caught up to this point of view, at least partially, as the Supreme Court hands down a historic ruling on affirmative action. Now, affirmative action in and of itself has been a rather conscientious subject in America because, well, the majority of people, I think they mentioned some 63% at the end of this article, recognize racism for what it is, unfairly advantaging certain groups of people because of their skin color over other groups of people. This isn't rocket science exactly, and yet it has been going on for a very, very long time. The court ruled that the race-based admission programs at Harvard violated Title 5 of the Civil Rights Act, and the University of North Carolina violated the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. The court voted 6-3 in the University of North Carolina case, and 6-2 in the Harvard case. So pretty overwhelming margins we're talking about here, as eliminating racial discrimination means eliminating all of it, said Chief Justice John Roberts. Precisely. Again, this isn't exactly rocket science, but it's taken a long way to get to this point because of the sheer level of institutional conquest that the far left has been able to carry out within the American system. In fact, it mentions it here, I believe. Yes. The Supreme Court ruled against Harvard University and the University of North Carolina's affirmative action policies in a decision that will have a profound effect on the admission processes at universities across the country. That's a rather chilling thought, isn't it? Racial discrimination in education was not the exception in America, it was the rule at universities across the nation. This simply saying discrimination is discrimination is set to have a profound effect on education in America. Holy shit. Clearly, the US education system went very, very, very wrong at some point in the past, didn't it? So why exactly was this even a question? Well, there's actually a brilliant example of it down here. Justices Jackson and Sonia Sotomayor wrote the dissents. Sotomayor accused the majority of further entrenching racial inequality in education. Today, this court stands in the way and rolls back decades of precedent and momentous progress, Sotomayor wrote, adding to the court cements a superficial rule of colorblindness as a constitutional principle in an endemically segregated society where race has always mattered and continues to matter. This is what I like to coin the white supremacist point of view, which Justice Jackson and Sonia Sotomayor here has adopted, as in their view, racial inequality is caused by, well, equality. So if you have a level playing field where the race of the applicant does not matter in the slightest, that causes racial inequality. The only conceivable way you can make this make sense in any way whatsoever is if you believe that certain races are superior to others, and if given the aforementioned level playing field, certain races will, due to the advantages of their skin color, I guess, rise above others. Again, I'm not really joking when I call this the white supremacist position, although it could also be referred to as the Asian supremacy position as well, I suppose, as the initial lawsuit was launched by white and Asian students who pointed to their higher test scores, and yet they were still rejected admission. Suspicious. And I can hear the objections already. Oh, it's not racism, it's societal inequalities. It's because of centuries of racism and so on. It's slavery. It's systematic inequalities, you see. That's the reason. Okay, alright. Well, in that case, let's base our selections on economic status, for example. Oh, we can't do that. There's a lot of poor white people out there, you see. So, if it isn't about economy directly, but the history of the people, and the history of people only of the certain skin color as well, mind you, because of course there were plenty of white slaves as well, and Asian slaves, look at the railways for examples for that. That means we are actually just judging based on skin color. Again, I'm not kidding. This entire argument is based near exclusively, in fact practically exclusively, on the skin color of the applicant. Because whenever you bring up the history of it, every race has been slaves at some point in time. Every race has been slaves to a lesser or greater degree at some point in time. Every slave has every race, has at some point been disadvantaged because of the history of their people, and so on and so on and so on. Ask the Irish about that, for example. But we still continue to this day. They also mention a previous example here. At the time Grutter was decided, Justice Sandra Day O'Connor said, "We expect that 25 years from now, the use of racial preferences will no longer be necessary." So if I understand correctly, this was the ruling that basically said that racial admissions criteria was okay back then, and they based it on the idea that in 25 years, this would no longer be a topic. But the current Supreme Court's response was 20 years have passed since Grutter, with no end to race-based college admissions in sight. But the court has permitted race-based college admissions only within the confines of narrow restrictions. Such admissions programs must comply with strict scrutiny, may never use race as a stereotype or negative, and must at some point end. That too is the key core point. Let us simply just blindly accept the argument, okay? So let us say that the black populace in America have been disenfranchised and disinherited and just generally disadvantaged by slavery. Alright, sure, let's accept that. How long will this disadvantage last? So they mention again, 25 years from now, this won't be a problem. And this was back in the 2000s as well, where unironically, we figured racism was pretty much a done deal. Like, we'd figured it out. We'd solved it. Racism was a distant specter on the horizon until the far left figured out, this is a stick with which to beat our political opponents with. Let's bring it back. Unironically, the 2000s, racism was not really an issue. And in the small elements that it was, we were actively working towards fixing it rather than continuing it. Because if we're going to continue this, we must have an end point. We must have a stop. We must have the ability to go, okay, well, we are finished now. However well intended and implemented in good faith, fail each of these criteria in reference to the college admissions, because it doesn't end. We are 25 years later. It hasn't ended, it shows no sign of ending, and the argument is the exact same argument. In fact, I believe... yes. I've heard the word diversity a number of times, and I don't have a clue what it means, said Justice Clarence Thomas. Based Justice Clarence Thomas, as that is of course one of the other arguments. Well, you see, it brings diversity to the campus. It makes for a more diverse group of students. What does that mean? It is one of those words that had been imbued with intrinsic positivity by the far left and their ideology. Diversity is intended to be a good thing. It is intended to be a positive descriptor, which is why we see individuals referring to themselves as diverse. Hey. But again, it has no actual meaning. What does it mean if a college campus has all the colors of the rainbow? Is it improved in some way because of the skin color of the people there? How so? How is this not racism? How is this not looking at the skin color of the people and going, well, they're different colors and so they must be good? Oh, but it isn't about color, it's about background and history. Okay, well, we'll just recruit based on background instead then, won't we? But of course, again, you can't do that because the target is racial discrimination, no matter how you dress it up. Hundreds of universities that consider race in admission and scholarship decision will now have to find non-race related ways to replace affirmative action, and that is unfortunately something that they are also trying to do. Some schools are considering requiring more essays for admissions to get a better idea of a student's background, whilst others plan to recruit students from minority areas or admit more students transferring from community college. Now, again, in theory, this isn't necessarily a bad thing. Like a student's background. Okay, so if you are historically, you've had a rough start to life, you know? You were born into a poor family, it seems like you're always going to be poor, but you're smart and you're going to apply for a big name university. Okay, that maybe should actually be something taken into consideration. It shouldn't be the only thing, and it shouldn't be overriding your test scores, but maybe it should be taken into consideration. But once more, the way this will be used is just like this. Students from minority areas. So instead of looking at your skin color, they'll look at your zip code and go, well, most of the people living here are minorities and we are massive, enormous racists, so let's hire from this group of people instead. Let's recruit them because that will give us our diversity. It is a way to circumvent the ruling of the law to continue to be racist. There is still a long way to go on this nonsense in America, no doubt about it, but this is a crucial first step to make it very clear once and for all in the public consciousness, in the consciousness of universities and students, that no, you shouldn't be discriminating based on race, because there is no such thing as positive discrimination. It is all discrimination. And also, this whole ridiculous mention as well, where was it? Colorblindness. Ah, yes. Cement a superficial rule of colorblindness as a constitutional principle. A superficial rule. Because they can't actually find a fault with this argument. Yes, recruitment to universities should be colorblind. Admissions to jobs, to public sectors, to government, everything should be colorblind. This was the solution we were working towards in the early 2000s that you rejected because it would provide a solution to the problem you require to seize power and authority. Because if you simply don't care about the color of the person opposite you, racism won't be a goddamn problem. Colorblindness is the solution to this problem, and we need to embrace it again rather than reject it on the basis of ideology. Hopefully, we'll get back there once again to the 2000s, the good times. So congratulations, America, for taking a step in the right direction. Till next time, have a good day.